Okay. All right. So let's see the syllabus. Okay. Can you see my screen now? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we will be lecturing every Thursday morning. All right. And here are the topics. All right. So since we do not have a lot of holidays for Thursdays, so I think we have enough time to cover all the things that you need to know from the course. All right, and we'll start today with a walkthrough of Java programming language project. All right, and after this week, I don't think just 3 hours are going to be enough for you to get the whole experience of programming in the Java language. So I advise you guys to search or look for Java tutorials, and the tool that I recommend is Eclipse. All right, you can use other tools for writing in Java language. All right, but I myself will be using Eclipse. All right, we'll go through how to get the tools and things as well, but you will need to do more study on your own. All right, I have a Java tutorial exercise and videos but I did it in Thai language when I taught the Thai language course, right? I didn't have time to do the English version. So if you are Thai, I think many of us in this class are, so you can find the link to the videos and the files of the exercise on our subject's Discord, all right? So you can go practice from there. And if you have questions, then there are channels on Discord to post asking questions, all right? So I will come to, look at your questions and answer on Discord, all right? So I guess that's it. So that's the first week, and you will need to do some extra work yourself. All right. And we'll start the actual content next week and so on, covering several data structure. Data structure means a data that can store other data. All right. Can store a lot of other data. So we'll have list, stack, queue, binary search tree. All right, and we have split up a bit. All right, we have to, I think we better have revision before the actual exam, midterm examination, and then the rest of binary search tree after the midterm exam, and then other topics such as hash table, sorting. This is algorithm that you need to know at this level, and heap, which is another data structure, then a special kind of binary search tree that's called an AVL tree. So we'll go through each one, well, in detail, right? Now let's get back. Okay, I can move this now. The score comes from 10% comes from class attendance, which Oh, there is a question. Why Java instead of Python? Well, Java is one of a good language when you want to define your own data type, because it can do some inheritance and simulate multiple inheritance well, all right? And quite a few other languages still use this scheme. So I think Java is a good language for defining our own data, all right? So that we can define our own data structure. It's not that Python cannot do it, all right? Python can do it as well, but you, especially the people who are in ICE, will need to know a structured language and imperative structured language like Java too. All right. So I think if we leave Java too late, it will be too late to introduce to you guys. So we will do this course using the Java language. All right. Okay. And for class attendance, 10%, right? Midterm and final exams only total to 30%, all right? I actually don't want you to be too depressed over online studying. So I kind of make the criteria this way so that you can concentrate on understanding, just doing homework and things. There's another question. For AI student, do you need a good grasp of the Java language or just basic syntax? Well, for AI student, it depends on the work that you will be doing. It depends. It depends. I think for AI students, you do not need to know as much as ICE students, right? But it really depends on the work that you are going to be doing, right? So if in the future you are going to be implementing a system by using other language that's similar to Java, like C#, for example, if in the future you have to write a simulation in a game engine or something, you will need to use C# or C++, which is much more similar to Java than Python, right? So in such case, you have to know more about the Java language. Otherwise, if your work doesn't lead you to do something with similar language, then I don't think so. But anyway, we don't really know for sure, right? It really depends. Okay. All right. And criteria for the grade, right? So if you get 85 or more, you get an A. And in this class, it's all about this rule, right? It's all about the rule. We do not grade by group, all right? So for readings, we have class notes, which are PowerPoints, and also ebooks that's written by me. And we also have other books if you want. If you want something in Thai language, there is a book, an old book, but has very solid content by Professor Somchai, right? And also there are other data structure book that I think is good. Well, at least for me when I read them. So I recommend those books too, right? So about the materials, let's see. All right. I think most of you should have joined my course wheel now, right? Only 68, but well, in among the two years for the AI students and the ICE student, I think there are a total of 130 or 135 for you. But I think you should be able, all of you, even though you're not in 219-0221, should be able to all join the course if you get the password. I hope I'm right, right? Did the AI students able to, were you able to join this class on my course wheel? Were you? Can any, no, it says access denied. Oh, bad. Okay, if you can't join, then it takes time. It takes time. It takes time. I'll have to manage it after class. All right. I'll have to, if it says access denied for you, then I will have to copy the materials to this one as well. The password. That's the password. That's the password. All right. So if you know the password, then try to join. And are there any other AI students who cannot join this course wheel? Can you try joining again? Well, anyway, so I guess I'll have to duplicate the materials onto this one because it's a bit difficult to maintain two sites, right? I'll have to duplicate the materials onto this one. Anyway. Oh, yeah. Okay. If we get back to here, you have the materials, right? I'll have to, oh, you are able to join this time. Okay, so that should mean that the AI student can be on the same page and I don't have to reduplicate and reclone things, which takes a lot of time because most of the time that I clone the materials, even though I clone them, the user interface forces me to, have to specify the folder again myself. So it's a lot of time. So that saves me a lot. So if you are able to join, then I won't copy to that course. All right. So we will mainly be getting the materials from this course 219-0221's course wheel. All right. So there are lecture slides, all right, of all the data structures, all right, and supplementary material, there are code that I use in the slides, all right, code that I use in the slides, and also my ebook, which, well, is a PDF. The file is not large, so you should be able to download without any problem. And the materials in the course comes with the book, all right? So that's the ebook. And also there are past papers for you to look at for 3 years, midterm and final for each year. And I hope that helps. And syllabus. All right. So currently documents are like this, and there are also playlists. If you click on playlist, there are videos that I make. Some are from my live teaching last year, but some I made as a video. All right. So this should cover almost all. I think I only have just one topic that I didn't make a proper video, which I think I'll try to get the video done. All right. Otherwise, almost all topics can, you can view them on video and study by yourself. All right. In the lecture, I will cover these topics. All right. Most of the time I will even, play the video and watch the video with you, but I will stop the video from time to time to elaborate more on the content. All right. So that's about the course. All right. For ICE students, there is also a lab course, right? But I didn't teach. I'm not on the teaching staff of the lab course this year, right? But the lab course will be on, I think it's on Wednesday, right? Right. So it is 1 day or 2 days before the lecture course on this one, right? And in that course, Professor Sukri is going to make you some problem to solve. All right. Anyway, I'll try getting the problem for this course ready for you to do myself too. On Wednesday and Friday, there are 2 sets. Okay, I'm just told that the lab are Wednesday and Friday because there are 2 sections. Okay. All right. Okay, but they're Wednesday, so okay. So then since the lab has to be the same for, I think the lab has to be the same for Wednesday and Friday. So Professor Sukri will have to get the content that I teach on the previous week and make into the lab for the week after, right? Okay, so we try to, work with each other to get the problems that's suitable for you. Anyway, okay, now let's get to what I am going to teach you today. All right, so I'm going to show you what we use as a tool and walk you through one problem regarding the Java language usage. All right, so let's see. Well, by the way, there is a walkthrough Java program. Right? Walkthrough means I walk through for you. All right, I walk through this project for you. And this project is not very small, so it's kind of a mid-sized project for doing an object programming exercise. All right, it can take some time, but I think many of the knowledge about the language is in this project. All right, so it's going to take some time, but please bear with me when I walk through the project, right, and implement the code for you to see. All right, okay, you can download this thing yourself and try implementing it yourself, right? If you already know the Java language, you can, do it in parallel and see if you have revised your knowledge properly, right? Anyway, so the tool that we are going to use, all right, first is the Java programming language development kit, right? If you search for JDK, Java JDK, you will go to the page and there is the version for downloading. The latest version is 17.0.1, right? That's the latest version. So you can download this version. There are versions for Linux, Mac, and Windows. So if it's me, I choose Windows, and you can get a compressed or a zip archive and install it by unzipping it yourself, or you can get the installer, right? So you get the installer. Normally, I just get the installer and double click the exe that I get to install it, all right? So first, install the Java development kit, all right? This will include the runtime environment, behind the scene environment for running things, and also the compiler that will compile the language. When you write, you have to compile the language to get the machine code, all right? For the Java language, it's a virtual machine. So any computer that has Java virtual machine installed, it's like installing an emulator for a game, right, on the machine. And this Java virtual machine will run the machine code of the Java language, all right? But it's unlike Python. If you have done Python before, when you do Python, you write your code and run the program right away, right? But in Java, you have to compile first to get the machine language, and then you run the compiled version, or you run the machine language version of the code. So it's 2 steps. But the tool that you are going to be using kind of make these 2 steps transparent, all right? So the tool that I recommend, which is the tool that I am most familiar with, by the way, right? If you are familiar with other tools, use them, all right? But I am familiar with this one. Eclipse, all right? If you go to eclipse.org, it's an IDE, or Eclipse, it's an integrated development environment, all right? It's one of the popular ones when used with the Java language. There are other tools like IntelliJ or NetBeans that are also very popular, all right? So once you get to the Eclipse page, it will normally detect your hardware, all right, and will prompt you to download the right version for your hardware. All right, for me, I have my PC, so it's Windows, and so the version that I am going to be downloading is a Windows version. When you download it, it's an installer, so you can double click and install it, right? Like any other program that you can double click to install, all right? And it will automatically detect the JDK that you previously installed. But that means for it to be, easy to install, you have to install the Java development kit first, right? Once you install Eclipse, then you can double click to open it. It may take some time, right, for the first run, right? But if you double click it, it come out like this. It come out like this. So in Eclipse, you have, let me try to, you have the Project Explorer window where each of your project will be displayed, right? You can organize project in many ways, right? You can make several workspace so that if you have a lot of projects, it doesn't, go down very long, things like that. So you can divide them into different workspace or divide them into different, what we call a working sets, right? For example, here is the workspace that I will use, a working set that I will use for teaching this class, all right? And for other class, I can change. I can change workspace. Let's say for other class, I can change that. That's changing working set, sorry, not workspace. Some people change workspace, but I keep one workspace, but change working sets instead. But the effect is very similar. So if I change working set to the folder that store my other subjects, the display project window or the Project Explorer window will change to include only the project in that working set. All right, it's slow somehow today. I think I didn't open a lot of apps. Okay, it comes eventually. So this is for another subject, which I've taught for many years. So it has many projects that I used for lab and lecture, right? To change working set, you can click here, and then select working sets that you want. You can select more than one so that the windows display from more than one working set, or select just one from the menu, or create new one. You can create a new one as well. If you choose select working set, you will be able to create a new one. It's like creating new folder, really, right? So that's it. And you can also, when you choose to select working set, you can remove existing working set as well. It's all in the user interface, right? So let's get back. Let's change the working set back to the one that I am working today. Okay, so it's a walkthrough for today. All right. So when you are writing your program, the Project Explorer window will show right? It will show the Java version. In my version, it's still 15, right? It will show the Java version that your project is using, and it will also show, if you have one, the test library that you use, right? And the source code, right? If we get back, the source code can contain many packages. These are called packages, which are in fact just folders, right? But the reason that we have folders is that in each folder, we can have files with the same name, right? So in folder exception and in folder logic, I can have file name A, all right, in both folders, and it will not be conflicting with each other, all right? So you can expand them in each folder, or what it called package. You can expand them and will the source code inside, all right? Double click and you can get the source code. This is the source code window. All right. I think my machine is loading quite heavily, so I guess I'll have to close down Discord for now. All right, and still chatting in Zoom, but I'll need to shut down Discord for now. All right. Okay. Hope it runs smoother. All right. So a Java program can contain many packages. All right. A Java program, when you write it, it can contain many folders. In this example, it can contain 1, 2, 3, 4. It contains 5 folders, but this folder doesn't have anything inside. So it can contain many folder or package. And in each package, we can have several files. All right. A file in the language, in this language, a file is called a class. A file that is in the Java syntax is called a class. Class has mainly 2 purposes. The first one is being the utility program or the main program to run, and the second purpose of a class is you use it to define your own data, right? So it can be utility or the main program that runs, or it can define a data for your main program or for utility program to use, all right? So that's one file of the language, all right? So in a package or in all these packages, there must be at least one class. Let's say this one. There must be at least one class that contains a main method, a method that's called main. All right. And this method will be the one that gets run when you run the entire program, right? When you run the entire program, you run it from a method or a function called main, right? And main will make use or will call other classes. So it will make use of other classes, but it will be the one that runs. All right. So for example, this one has the project that I am going to walk you through has many classes. These are all class, right? The file that's written in the Java language is called class, right? So we have many classes, but there's only one that contains the main method. That is, in this case, the class called main, but actually the class that contains main method can be any class, right? Can have any name, but in this project it's named main, right? So your program runs from here, public static void main, right? It's always public static void with Java, where, right? Maybe it's just a bit too big. All right, so I guess that's it. Okay, so public means, well, public, private, and other keywords are what we call access modifier, right? Or what we call access modifier. It dictates how other files can view this part of the code. Public means any other files, any other classes, any other methods can access or can view inside main method, right? Static. Static means to call the main method, you do not have to create a new object, right? An object or a data piece, all right, is a data that you need to create in order to use its function, all right? But anything that's static means you don't need to create a data piece or a data object to call this function, all right? Because Java define data type, all right? A class in Java can define a data type. So most, well, not most, many times we define a data like car has, let's say, int speed something. A car has a speed and perhaps it has a method move, something like that. It has function move, something like that, right? Has speed and has function. So in order to change speed or move a car, you have to have the car first, right? So normally in this language, this will only work on this speed, and this move will only work on one car, all right? But you have to create that car first in order for speed of that car to be changed, or in order to the move method of that car to be called to change things on that car only, all right? So you will have to have something like car A equal new car. We will go through this again, all right? So that means you have to create new car means a new data. New data that is of type car appear in your machine's memory, all right? If you do not use the command new, there will be no object or piece of data of type car appearing in your machine's memory, all right? So to change the speed or move a car, you have to create a car first, all right? But if your method is static, then you don't need to create a car. You can call the method right away, right? You can call, it's like it's a global function, all right? But you call it using the class name car dot main, something like that when you call it, all right? So basically, you will see this more and more, right? But basically, static means you don't need to create a single object, right? It can be called from the class name, right? Void means it doesn't return anything, right? This is what we call a return type, right? It's a return type. Let me make it a bit bigger. When you declare a method, you have to tell the method that it's going to return something or not. Void means it doesn't return anything, right? In language like Python, you don't have to, right? You don't have to define the data type that it's going to return. But in this language, in Java language, and in other similar languages like C#, C++, you will have to define the data type that method main will return, right? Otherwise, in the bracket here is a method argument or a method parameter, all right, which you can supply when you actually calling the method, all right? In this case, main method always accept parameter that is an array. Args is the parameter name, right? It's an array of string. Array, if you have done Python, it's kind of like a list, right? It's Python has array as well, right? But the syntax and its use may be, because of the syntax, may be a bit different, right? So here we run in this example, but I need to explain the problem first. This is running the problem, all right? And if you are going to do this question together with me, I better show you how to do a new project in the tool, all right? So, well, any questions so far?
Maybe a bit about the midterm.
Midterm what?
The midterm exam. So like, the kind of exam we'll be taking is something like, if it's on site, it's something like you give us like an exam paper and we fill in like
If
some
it's
codes or
on
write.
site, if it's on site, I think it will have to be in a paper form, because we don't have enough. I don't think we have enough room.
Okay.
Okay.
And what if it's forced to be online?
If it's online, it will be online. It will be done as small rooms in Zoom and Discord. All right, so you will be using both Zoom and Discord. All right, but we will divide both Zoom and Discord into several small rooms. Right, and there will be proctor in each room that will your Discord and Zoom screen. Right, Zoom screen will be used as a camera to see your side view, and Discord will be used as screen viewer to see your screen. Something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. So still, it's not clear whether we can go back on site by midterm, but I'll tell you when I know. All right. Okay. So now comes to the walkthrough. All right. Okay. Let's see the problem first. Okay. The problem. If you have the file already, all right, the file is in here, all right, in my course view. All right, once you get the file, it used to be an exercise, so you get something like this when you unzip them, right? Then, okay, let's see the problem, and then we I will actually walk you through it. Okay. This is the problem sheet. So it asks you to create a new project in Eclipse, right? Create a new project and then implement all classes and methods asked in the exercise, which I will have to explain what this exercise is about first. Then you are given a test file, which I will explain as well, how to run test file, all right, with the tool that you have, all right? So first, new project first, all right, let's new project. Okay, let's first, I think I'll close the window just to minimize the memory. That my machine is
can we have the user and password for Microsoft again?
Again, the user should be your ID, right? The password,
I mean like the
what?
course register.
Course register? You mean the course ID?
Yes.
The course ID. Okay, hang on. That's the course ID. I put it in the chat.
Thank you, ครับอาจารย์
Okay. All right. So to new a project, what you can do with this tool is to go to the Project Explorer window here on the left-hand side and right-click on your mouse, new project. All right. And choose the project type that you want. Normally it's Java project. All right. Next. And then project name. I'll say you can't have the same project name in the same Project Explorer window. If you name it the same as the project you did before, it will warn you. So I'll just walk through number 2, all right, and choose the Java version that you will use, which, well, you can change the version, all right. Well, I'll just use the default version that I have. Create separate folders for the .java file and the .class file. .class is the one that's compiled into the machine language of the Java virtual machine that will run your code. All right. So normally I leave them as default. All right. And I have a working set. So I will have to tick here to create this project in the working set that I want. In here, you don't need to. The module-based project is a different kind of project that needs some config file when you integrate several things or several libraries and external libraries together. So you need config file for that, but we are not going to do anything with module in this class. So you can leave them, right? And oops, okay, get back. Okay, then next. You can click finish, but I just want to show you if if you click next. What is there's a person asking what is the working set? The working set is a folder of Project Explorer that you want to show projects that's related. All right. One working set for one set of projects. All right. If you want to create new ones, you can click new working sets. All right. But I'm in the middle of creating a project here, so I can't do that. All right. So I create. Normally, you don't need to do anything in this next page. All right. So I'll just click finish. And it will create walkthrough number 2, all right, with source folder and the Java version that I have, but nothing inside, right? Nothing inside. you can change working set from here, right? Here, edit working set, select working set, and you can new your own folder, right? So you can have many different, let me show you. Like I have different working sets for the subject I teach, sometimes for even for each year, right? So you can new, edit, or remove working sets and select the current working set. Can select all to show every working set in the same window, right? But I usually never done that, right? Okay. So you get this file. Let's see the file you get in the problem. Right? In the problem, you actually have given a project file that is incomplete. All right. So what you are asked to do, well, these are files that generate by Eclipse. All right. Most of these are files that generated by Eclipse when a person who did the question make the project. All right. The file that you need for this exercise is actually in the SRC or source folder. All right. These are divided into 4 folders or 4 packages in Java terms. So what we do, it contains all the classes, all right, that you need, but they're not complete. So first, to prepare, drag them in completed folder, but contains all the file into source folder of your project. You can drag them into Project Explorer tab in Eclipse right away. It will ask you whether you will work on them directly or you will create a copy. All right, normally I create a copy so I can keep the original intact. All right, so I leave the default to be copying the files. All right, so all right, copy, and you get the folders being made into packages. You can create your own package, right, by right-clicking on the folder that you want to make package inside, new, select new, after right-clicking a new package, and you can name it my package or something. You can name it any name that's not a duplicate name with existing package. Right? This package is actually empty. It doesn't have anything inside. So the tool shows you that it doesn't have anything inside like this. If a package has something inside, it will show you the brown color. And if the thing inside cannot be compiled somehow with some error, it will show you with this symbol, all right? The red crossing symbol. And if it has some warning, it will show you a small yellow symbol, all right? For now, okay, these are what we are given in this problem. What's the problem itself? Let's go through the problem and the design of how to solve the problem. All right. So the problem itself is something like this. Okay. Okay. The initial problem is you have been transported into fantasy world by getting hit by a truck, right? And you in that world somehow is the only one who knows how to program. So you have to create a fantasy world guild member database for the guilds in the fantasy world. All right. So the operation of the guild database is something like it will have a main menu, right? It will have a main menu where you can enter 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 according to the main menu, right? So the database will contain the following, right? Let me write it down. So in the system, it's something like this. It's the design is that you have the class main that has main method that run the menu, right? And class main will make use of 3 data. That's guild member, department, and guild database. And how they work, all right? This is called a class diagram, all right? And what it explains is it shows you a class or a Java file. The first part of the class is variables of the class. Variables, name my database is of type guild database. All right, variable name for class department is of type string, something like that. So the first parts are variables. The second parts are methods. Methods that you can call or you must implement in order for other parts of the program to call. All right. So in this design, what we will be implementing is parts of guild member, some methods in here, some methods in here, and some methods in here. And also, I think just 2 methods in here. All right. And how this program works is that, let me find an empty page. Okay. Okay, we will create a guild database, something like this. So a database will contain an array list right? And array list is an array that can grow in size automatically, right? Normally, in most programming languages, array, once you declare an array, it must have fixed size, all right? For example, if you declare something like, let's use the syntax right away. So this is how you declare an array in the Java language. So a variable A is an array of integer, all right? And A gets created with 10 slots. So when you execute this statement, you will have something like this. you will create array named A that contains 10 slots, where each slot will have default value of the data type you specified. So int has 0 as its default value. All right. So this is what you will have when creating an array. But in this language, array, when you define it, you have to specify the number of slots, and the slots cannot be changed. So if you add more and more things to array, then it will go out of the slots. All right. So that's a problem with array in many languages, including Java. All right. It needs to know the size so that it can optimize the location in the memory of where to put this chunk in to optimize the memory the most, the usage of memory, right? So, well, that's the problem with array. But with array list is written as a class or just a file, again, in the Java language. It contains array and a function that will be called automatically when you add things to the array, and that thing go into, or is supposed to go into an extra slot because there are no slots available. If things are going into an extra slot, array list make the array bigger for you automatically, and so that the new data is put in a supposedly legal position. All right. So that's array list. Right. In this exercise that I'll walk through, we will be using array list. All right. And in this course, you will be learning about how to make data such as it stores any other data like array list, right? So you will be learning how to make another array list, right? Or that kind of thing. That is a data that can store many other data. All right. But in this example that I'm going to walk you through, we are going to be just using the one that is defined before here. All right. Okay. So that database contains array list of departments. All right. So the guilds has many departments. In each slot of array list, it will contain one department where a department contains, okay, it's getting a lot. I'll have to delete it, right? It's just too much on screen now. Okay, let's rewrite it. Okay, maybe using Paint is better. Let's see. Okay. Okay, so I've got a database. I can write text here too. Maybe it's too small. Okay, database that contains array list of departments. All right, so we will have several departments. All right, this is a department. I think the better way is something like this. A database. A database contains more than one thing, but one thing that's stored in the database is array list. Of departments. All right, for a department has quite a few variables, I think, and one of them is another array list of where this is a guild member. So with this design, a database contains several departments or several factions. All right, where each faction has several guild member, being a person. A person is in each department, a person or an animal, depending on what you can count for a guild member in a fantasy world. All right, so this is what we are going to be implementing. All right, where we have data that stores collection of other data. Inside a data can even store another collection, something like that. Okay, so let's see how we define and write them. All right, so first we have to be writing the smallest part first. All right, so I think the easiest way is to define and completely write the smallest part first. So that guild member has to come first. Then department has to come second, so that it can be put in database afterward. So database has to come last. All right, so 1, 2, 3, guild member, department, and database itself. Okay, now let's see the operation. So the operation is we select the menu and it performs something, and it will go back to the main menu again after performing something. All right, so if you will the member, if you will select 0 here, after the menu is displayed, if you select 0, you will be given the department that you want to view to choose from. By default, the system, the program in this exercise have unassigned department as a default, only one department, but you can create new department. All right, so you can select one and create new department, choosing a new name. If it's a duplicate name, it won't add. All right, it will not add duplicate name department. So if this is when you first add, it will create the department fighters successfully. But if you try again and try to add fighters again, it will say it fails and it returns to the main menu. So the loop is you do something and it returns to the main menu. In this example walkthrough program, all right? If you choose a blank name, if you do not enter a name when you originally select, you want to create a new department, but you don't enter a name, it fails again. It fails again. All right, because the name cannot be blank. All right, you will be the one to implement this, right? Or we will be the one, since I'll walk you through it. All right. To remove the department, you select number 2 from the main menu, right? Remove department. Then choose a department to remove. There are unassigned and fighters. So I can select removing fighters, and it will remove department. And it will have confirmation for you when you want to remove things. Since there are no members, so it doesn't say when, so it says that 0 members are moved to the unassigned department. So when a department is removed, if it has members inside the department, those members will be moved to the unassigned department. All right. You can also create a new member. New member, right? Create a new member by choosing tree and input name, job title, and salary, right? And once a member is created, you have to choose a department that that member belongs to, right? Okay. So that's creating a new member. Remove member will remove a member from a guild, right? It's not like removing department, because removing member will delete the member completely, but remove department will delete only the department and move all the members in that department to the unassigned department. All right. So I think that's all the operations. Right. Remove number 4. Remove from unassigned department. And you can then choose the person to remove. Okay. That should be the operation in total. All right. So let's try implementing it. Okay, before we go through the actual implementation, all right, I want to do something first. I want to try to see if my course will work for checking your attendance. All right, let me try to get the website running again. Hang on. My course will. Okay. All right. So let's try if this works. Check attendance for today. Yes. Okay. I will produce a link and I'll paste the link in the chat. All right. So you click on the link in the chat of Zoom. All right. In order to. All right. Let's see if I can do it now. Okay. Check your attendance through link I have pasted in Zoom chat now. See if it works. So I can't close the window. If I close the window now, it will become invalid. Okay. Right. Okay. Many has checked. Some haven't. Okay. Did everyone check in? because I can't close the window if I do it this way. But QR code may not be suitable for everyone, since some people doesn't have or maybe using their phone. So I think using a link is best. All right. Okay, is that everyone? Is everyone, check?
No, not yet ครับอาจารย์ผมทำไม่ได้ครับ
Why?
I'm not sure. I think my browser isn't working properly.
Is are you in my course view of this course already?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Can you do mine manually? I think you can.
Okay, hang on. I would like to try again. Okay.
Okay.
I'll try again. 1, 2. It will generate a new link. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's a new link. Try this one.
ขอบคุณครับอาจารย์
Is it okay? Hope that's okay. Okay, is the check-in okay for everyone now?
It's okay now ครับอาจารย์
Okay, so I guess it reset pretty quickly. It reset pretty quickly. Somehow it well, by the specification it shouldn't be resetting, but I guess that there's still some bugs. Anyway, okay, let's get back to the first example. Let me close this to save my machine's memory. Okay, so before we go for a break, I want to show you an implementation of a guild member class, all right, and a specification. So let's see. Okay, a guild member class. A guild member, well, a data that's going to be a guild member must have a name, all right, must have a job title, and must have department, right? So it must know the department that it belongs to, all right? And it must have salary, all right? So these are the fields or the variables that one guild member should have, all right? And we have other things that we need to implement then. We have constructors, right? Well, things that are not variable in a class are methods. Constructor. Can I use the pencil in here? Okay. Constructor is a method that has the same name as the class name that it is in, all right? And it is used to initialize the values, all right? It used to initialize the values to the values that you want when you create guild member object, right? So that means a constructor will be called when you do something like is it too small? Maybe I should just use this. That's too big. It's too big. Okay, I think I'll change the size. Since I cannot change the size of that thing, maybe using paint. So a constructor, a constructor is called, oops, it has to be the same case sensitive. You do something like this, I think. Okay, you do something like this. This is when you create one guild member. All right, when you create a guild member, which is, well, this creation of a guild member can be anywhere outside the class, all right, or inside this class somewhere. All right, when you create a new guild member, you call new command and a constructor. This is the constructor, the one that you are going to be defined. All right, the one that you are going to define here. So it calls constructor with the parameter. So calling it, execute the code in here that you define. All right. So new guild member means create an object of type guild member in memory, assign location in memory for a guild member, and then call a constructor that initialize the variables inside that guild member. All right, and then assignment to M means you just linked variable name M to that location that you create the data in your machine's memory. All right. All right. All right, so let's get back to the problem. So we have guild member, initialize all the fields to have the value as specified in each one here. String, and int would be name, job title, and salary. And for department, set its value as unassigned. All right, okay, that's fine. And it says that we should use setter to set the value. Right? I'll show you what happened and what if we don't use setter. All right. And we have other methods, set names and things, set name. Okay, let's implement each one. I'll try to make this window a bit small. Let's try implementing each one. Hope that's not too small. Right? Okay. Okay, so first I'll try implementing a constructor. All right, so I have guild member here. Let's make it a bit smaller by pressing Control minus and Control plus. You can zoom in and out. Okay, guild member. All right, I hope that's clear. maybe expanding this a bit. Okay. So for guild member, you initialize the value. What you can do right now is you can do this. You can do initialize name, a variable name to this value. Initialize job title to this value. Initialize salary to this value. All right, but notice that they have the same name. They have the same name. So variables and parameters in the method can have the same name. But if you just use something like initialize name equal to name, it will just confuse. All right. Name equal to name actually means this name equal to itself. All right. Name means the name that you define in an enclosing bracket. So enclosing bracket will be the area here. So when you say name, it will just mean the name you put in the argument. You will not be able to get name variable from here. So how do we solve this? In an object-oriented language, we have a syntax like this. This dot name equal to name means name of this data, not a name of a method. All right, name of the data, name of the dot means of, or if of the data, this means this object or this data. So this dot names mean the name you declare as a variable of the class, right, of the data that you want to define. All right. And well, in the method, if you are not familiar with Java or similar language, when you write a method, you write access modifier, all right, and return type, but this one, like get name, has return type being string, but constructor does not have a return type, so you can leave it blank. All right, then method name and parameter. A method in the Java language must have curly bracket. All right, so in this language, we do not use indentation. All right, we do not use indentation to separate parts of the program like Python, right? We use curly bracket. Indentation is used in this language just to make the program readable, all right? So when you write a method, always have curly bracket, all right? Surrounding the area at the end of the bracket of the argument and the code body of the method. All right. So I say this dot name equal to name. This dot job title. Well, when you print in, if you have a good editor like Eclipse, it will guess what you are printing. All right. So in this case, I'm just typing partially, and it guess I'm going to print job title, and so I can press enter right away. Or if it doesn't come up, you can press Control space, like I'm pressing now, Control space, and it will have a suggestion for you. All right, something like that. And also, my department equal to unassigned So that's the constructor initialize all the variables, but it's not quite correct. All right, it will not be correct in some case like, what if the person who used or who called guild member give a negative salary? If a negative salary is given, then this dot salary will be set to a negative value, which is wrong. So to prevent illegal range of value, we have to do something different. So this actual direct assignment may not be good enough. So normally, if you want to set a value of a data of an object or set a value of a data defined in a class, all right, you usually, to prevent illegal range of value, you usually have to set the value through a provided method. All right. That's why this is not quite correct. All right. The better way is to call the method to set the value for you, and that method will deal with illegal range of value. All right. So we will have to fix this, but we'll do it after we fill in other parts of the program. All right. Okay. So we will, in the next step, look at other parts of the program in this class. All right. We'll go through it class by class, starting with this one. I hope you can see a lot from how we define just this class alone. All right. Okay, but before we carry on, is there any questions?
Professor?
Yeah.
What does this do again?
What does this do?
This dot.
This dot names is a syntax marker to identify the variable defined for the class. This dot name means name of this class object, which can only mean names that define in this area, just surrounded by scope of the class. All right. So it's not a name defined in the method. It's not a name defined in parameter argument of methods. All right. It's a name defined directly within the class. All right. So that's what this dot name means. So we basically pinpoint where name comes from. All right. Because if we don't pinpoint, it will, if we say just name like this, the system will just search for the closest name in the closest bracket that's around it, which will find only this one. All right. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you, Professor.
Okay. Okay, any other questions?
So is it kind of like self dot in Python? Similar?
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of like self, yeah.
Right.
All right. Okay. If there are no other questions, I think it's better to have a break. All right. We have a 10-minute break. All right. We have a 10-minute break and we'll come back to this question and I will run the test code for you to show you how to design and run your test code in Java environment. All right. Okay. See you in 10 minutes. Okay, so the next part of the functions or the methods that operate on the guild member object or guild member data when guild member data is created. All right. So the methods here all work on one guild member when that guild member is created. All right. Created using a command new guild member. All right. So we define it so that other classes can create guild member and then call the functions to change or modify guild member. All right. So one more thing, in the language like Java or C# or C++, when you end a statement, you must end it with a semicolon. All right. Otherwise, the language compiler will not know that you end the line. All right. So you have to have a semicolon at the end of each statement. All right. So let's carry on with other methods. Let's look at set name. All right. Set name. Set the name of that member. If the string is empty, it will set the name to anonymous, abbreviated as anon. All right. So what we do? Well, a hint tells us that a string hash method is blank to test if the string is empty. So we can call is blank on string. All right. So this is what we'll do. Set name. So this will show the if statement actually. If name dot is blank, so it already has is blank as a choice that it thinks I will type. So I'll select it. If name dot is blank, in this case, if statement in this language has to have bracket surrounding the condition. All right. And in order to execute a chunk of code, several lines, for that if condition, you need a bracket. All right. If you do not have a bracket, if will only execute one line. All right, one line for that case. All right, for that true evaluation, it will execute just one line. If you want several lines, you have to have brackets. All right. I usually have bracket anyway, just in case I need to add more lines and things. All right. So if the name is blank, according to what we see here, let me change the pointer. I hope I can. Okay. Right. So if the name is blank, then set the name to anonymous. All right. If the name, whoops, cannot be done. If I type name alone, it will mean this name, not name of guild member. It will mean name of the method set name. So I should use this dot name equal. Right. So if name is blank, then this name equal to anonymous. Otherwise, or use else, you can use else this way. Else, then set it normally. Right. So this is the set name method. All right. So this should do it. And that means it's now safer for blank input as well. So we should change up here. We should change to set name. So that it accommodates the case where the people who call guild member use blank name. All right, so this will deal with that with set name here. All right, change it here. That's set name. All right. So any questions about this function? Setting a name to, to change to this given one. Okay, any questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
The method is blank. It is already implemented in Java, or did you wrote it?
It's already implemented.
Okay.
In the string class.
If we put exclamation point name, isn't it the same as name dot is blank? We don't have to call this method then.
If what? Say again.
With I wrote it in chat. Okay.
All right.
Because if the name is blank, it means that it is an empty string, and so putting this would result in an empty string in a condition is false. I guess.
Let's try. You mean like this?
Oh yes.
It doesn't work in this language. Okay. It doesn't work in this language. It works in other language, but not this one. So name, if it's an empty string, other language can interpret it as being kind of null or zero. All right. So not name in other language may mean non-existing name, which means may mean correct, may be true in that language, but not Java. Java has stricter data type. So name in Java can only have string type. All right, name in Java. Once you define it as a string, it can only have string type. When it can only have string type, it cannot be converted into Boolean. So it doesn't work. All right.
Okay, thank you.
So it's very strict in data type. But in other languages, you can probably use this. All right. Not name. The exclamation read the same, read not. All right. In this language, the exclamation means not as well. But since you cannot convert string to Boolean, so it doesn't work. All right, so back to this. Any other questions? All right.
Can we use like equal to empty string?
Something like this. Well, I guess that's I don't know if this is fixed. In a sense, it should be okay, but I don't think Java has fixed this. I'll draw it. I don't think it works, but I'll give you the reason. So when you use equal sign, it compares the address. It compares the address of the data.
Oh, okay. Because it's an array, right?
It's the different name here is defined as, it may be defined somewhere else, right? And equal and the empty string might be somewhere here. So it's a different address because equal sign compare different address. So doesn't work. I'm not sure if in a new version of Java they have fixed this, because this is a very common mistake. But I just to be safe, I let me say that it's not fixed, right? I'll have to look at it more, but I don't think it's fixed. So this should not work. But there may be something that works instead of is blank. This may work. This may work because the method equals compare the words. I think equals in string compare the words. So if it's just comparing the words, not address, right? So this should work as well. I'm not sure if there are exceptional case, right? But most of the time this should work. But the safest implementation is blank, I think. Okay. So there is another question. Why do we have to change to set name? Well, you mean up here, right? I change it so that when the name here is given as blank name, I'll have this code to change it to anonymous, right? Otherwise, if I just have the same code as before, it's just this line, right? It won't change name to anonymous if given the blank name. All right, so I want to make it consistent. When you try to set a name and you given the blank name, it should be setting the name to anonymous every time, including when you create the object. So I change it to use set name here. All right. So which should be done, I think in many of the cases when you create the object, you should prevent illegal range of value that can happen to that object. All right, so that's why normally this one, and this one will then change to call the set methods respectively of each of them. All right. Okay. Any other question? Any other questions? All right. Okay. No. Right. Let's get back to the example. There is a question asking me, is method naming convention not starting with capital letter? No. The method naming convention of the Java programming language start with lowercase letter. And for each word following the first word, you start that word with uppercase letter. It's called camel case. Writing names, consecutive names like this is called camel case. All right. So no capital letter for the name. All right. But by convention, the class name should start with capital letter. All right. But other things like variables and method names should start with lowercase letter. But for the first word of each following word in that name, you start with capital letter. All right. It's just a convention. It doesn't actually punish you or anything if you don't do it this way. All right, just a convention. Okay, I guess it's because the people who invent the language thinks it's easier to read this way. All right, okay, so set name. Now, any other questions? Sorry. Any other questions? All right, so now we are here at set job title. Right, set job title. Again, if the string is blank, then set it to adventurer instead. So it's actually almost the same code, right? So I copy it, set job title, and just change if job title. Choose by control space is blank, then this dot job title set to adventurer. And then otherwise, job title, control space, all right, getting the choice to the job title given in the argument. All right, so that's setting the job title. All right, so if it is blank, then set it to adventurer. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing as the name. All right, so we can deal with the blank string in here as well when given here as blank string. So I can set job title. Right, so that's one thing done. Now set salary. Set salary, it has more cases, bit more cases. So if the salary is negative, set it as 0. If the salary greater than 100,000, then it's just set to 100,000. Otherwise, set the salary to the value given. So it has 3 cases now. So in this one, set salary here, right? The default is return 0, which we will delete. All right, this one return int. All right. Set job title return void. Oops. I think I gone to the wrong place. It should be set. All right. Set salary. That's get. Get should return int. That's correct. And set salary. Set doesn't have to return anything because the things that it does is it changes the value of salary stored in queue member anyway. All right. So the change is there. You don't need to return the value of anything because you can observe the change through reading the variable afterwards. Okay. So set salary. So if, oops, it doesn't print. Okay, it's really slowed down my machine now. So am I opening anything that needs to be closed? No? Okay. All right. So if salary is negative, then set the salary of the object to 0, right? Else, if written this way in this language, else if salary is greater than 100,000, then salary equal to 100,000, right? And then for other cases, just use else. All right. Oops. Okay, the alignment is like this. If you want to get rid of excessive space, but just don't want to just press delete or something, you can use Control Shift, right? Press Control Shift, hold Control Shift, and then press F. It will organize the face, the alignment, the indent for you, right? Control Shift and then F, all right? All right, so that's set salary. All right, I think, oh, okay. So that's if and else if in this language. All right. Again, if you do not have bracket, it will only execute one line after the if statement. All right. So I always have a bracket just in case I have to add some other lines. All right. But it's up to you. All right. And in here, get salary, you need to write things back, right? So, but before that, I will change set salary. Change set salary and set department. Is there a set department? Set department, right? It doesn't say it should do anything, but nothing special. So you may not need set department, but for good practice, I want to implement set department anyway. So this dot my department equal to my department. Oops, my department of the parameter here, right? So that I can consistently set department to assign using method, right? So it depends on what you want to do. I do it here because I want it to be consistent with other things that use set methods, right? So set department like this, and now get. We need to implement all the gets, all right? Because these are all private. These are all private. If they're all private, then I cannot do something like this. When I write, let's say in a main program, and I have a guild member, let's say G, guild member in a main program. In a main program like this, all right, equal to new guild member, all right. Then after I want to access guild member, I normally, if it's public, I can do g dot name to read the name, all right. But if it's private, it will not allow you to do g dot name, g dot job title, g dot my department, g dot salary. You cannot do direct, this is called direct field access to a variable of an object if the variable is declared private, right? So you cannot read g.name. You cannot write to g.name too. Cannot read and cannot write if it's declared private. That means for other clauses to read and write to g.name, you need get of name and set of name. You need get and set methods of that variable. All right. So this is not allowed. So get back. We have to write both get and set then. There is a question. Can you use the math library to clamp the salary value like in Unity? Well, it involves the same thing, I think. It involves the same thing. You can clamp the value, but I think the amount of writing that needs to be done for this case is, I think it doesn't matter, right? But I'm not sure about math library in Java if it has this specific feature. But if it has, I think you can, right? Okay. Get name, return, very easy now, because get just return the value, right? So return name. And it doesn't confuse. If in this code, you do not define name, then name here will mean the name of outer scope. So the name defined in a bracket that surround this area, which is here in the bracket that surround the whole area. All right, so it gets name from there, so it doesn't confuse. And also, if let's say set name, if this is changed to n instead, then you don't need this dot name here, since there is no name confusion anymore. You can just name equal unknown name equal n, all right? If this is n, right? You don't need this dot name here, all right? So by default, if the name is not being confused with other same names nearby, then it means the name of the object, all right? It means the name defined as a variable of that object, all right? But in the example here, we use the same name, so I need this dot to distinguish between the two names, all right? Okay, let's get back to get. So get name, return name, get job title, return job title. So it's just reading the value, right? Get my department, return my department. So it's just get the value. So get usually easy, but necessary because private forbids both reading and writing. Get salary, return salary. Oops, I'm writing too fast, maybe. Okay. All right. So that should do it for operations, all the methods necessary to operate guild member. All right. So let's test guild member. So now we will be looking at the test file, all right, and how to run the test, all right, using what we call a JUnit, all right. So let's get to that. Okay, guild member, normally when we want to test if the constructor is working as we intended. We want to test if, well, we perhaps don't need to test get functions, all right? But for set functions, we may want to test if each set here are doing the right thing. This one may not need to be tested because it's very simple. Doesn't have special case, all right? But set like set job title, set name, set salary may need to be tested case by case if they are correct. To test each method one by one, the way we can do it is writing test case, all right? In Java, we actually have many ways of writing a test case, but one way very well supported by tool is JUnit, and it's very well supported in Eclipse. So when you want to run a test case, you write a test file, right? Let's say a test file, guild member test, all right? This is a complete test file that is written to test each of the method. So we test if constructor work as we intended, test if set name, set job title, set salary works as we intended, and set department work as we intended. This one may not need to be checked, but anyway. So we write the method in the format that it imports from this library org.junit.jupyter or org.junit for JUnit version 4. In this example here, I'm using JUnit version 5, but in other examples, I may be using JUnit version 4, which, well, the Eclipse itself will detect the version, so you don't need to worry too much. All right, here I still do not have JUnit library in my project, so I need to import it. So to import, just, well, it highlights the library that is not imported, so I can fix project setup, right? Again, hover your mouse over org.junit and then fix project setup, and then it will have JUnit file for you to add anyway. It knows anyway, but it doesn't add automatically. Double click, and it will add JUnit 5 library. All right. For JUnit 4, it's the same. It depends on the version of test file. All right. For JUnit, each test case will be marked above the method of that test with add test. All right. So each one of this method will be run one by one. All right. But one can be run before the one that's actually written above it. So we don't know the order, but each run of the test is run independently, and it will show the result of all the runs. So if I want to test this, we will discuss what's inside a bit later, right? But let's try to run it. First, run as, so you must select the file, select the JUnit file, right? Then run as JUnit test. It will run all the methods specified, constructor test, setName test, but the order may not be the same, right? The order that it runs may not be the same as the order you have written down. And this case means it runs 5 of the methods. We have 5 test methods, right? It runs 5 and doesn't have any error. This indicates compiling error. This indicates unexpected value coming out of a method. Unexpected means different than what we expect, which we define in the test file. So let's see. So for a constructor test, right, these are all passed. If one of them doesn't pass, then the bar will be red, right? And it will show you why it doesn't pass, all right? So for example, but let's see what it means first. In constructor test, I test constructor by creating guild member and see if the value in guild member is actually the one that I expect. So I do 2 creations here. I do 2 creations. The first one, create a guild member with name Nest and with department as sidekick department and salary being 50. So after the creation, get name of Nest, nest.getName should get me the word Nest. This is the test. You use method that is in JUnit library called assert equals. There are other assets as well, but most of the time you will be seeing assert equals. Assert equals compare the result from calling a method with our expected value. All right. If they match, the run passes. If they do not match, it reports an error. All right. And it reports how it doesn't match. Which value is it? And which value is the expected value? It will report on the right hand side panel, and the detail will be put here below the run panel. All right. So get name being Nest, get job title should get sidekick, and get salary should get 50. All right. Get department should get unassigned. All right. And for the guild member that we created using blank and negative salary, it should get name being anonymous, job title since it's blank, but we know that set should give us some department name, right? Adventurer, that is job title, not department, job title, adventurer, and minus or negative salary should be reset to 0, right? So anonymous.getSalary, anonymous in this case is here. get salary should be 0 after this creation, and department should be unassigned. So this is testing the expected value after the constructor is called. So similar idea applies to set name, right? Set name, we have a guild member. Well, we have to have a guild member to set its name. So you have to create it first, new guild member, all right? Then set name. And after the set name, you should get name, and it should get the name that you set. And if set name to blank, you should get anonymous name, right? So that's the expected return, right? And job title similar, right? Set job title to doctor, you should get doctor from the method get job title after that. Or if you set job title to blank, then you should, after that, get job title should give you adventurer, things like that. So you test what you want to, you know, what you expect, compare what the method actually does and the expected value returned from the method or resulting from the method. If the method just return void, it must have changed something. You have to read the variable that it changed, see if it's the expected value then, right? So that's the job title test. And also set salary. If you set salary to normal salary, it should get you that salary, right? But if it's negative, it should be set to 0. If it's too much, it should be set to its maximum value, which is 100,000, right? So you test it, test all the cases that your program expects to work on. If there are so many cases, you can split the test into set salary test 1, set salary test 2, things like that. You can separate the test, all right? So that's the basic of testing. If something doesn't match, it will show you. Let's say I change the expected outcome, which shouldn't, right? But let's try changing the expected outcome of get name here. And I try to run the program. Save first, all right? I always save first, but it will prompt you to save anyway if you want to run anything. Run. And it will tell you that the run is not complete, right? The run is does not pass, that is. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the run that's okay, but the test constructor is not okay. So you can click on each one to see the detail. When you click on this one, it will show the detail, and the detail says, okay, let's get it down here. Okay, expected nesty, but was nest. So you know the expected value and the value that you actually get, and it's in which line. You can double click to go to the line that the unexpected value come out, all right, and try to fix your code so that the test is, well, come out correctly. Well, in this case, I make a mistake of the name, so I should correct the name back, and then it should run correctly now. Okay, something like this, right? So this is how you test your file. Normally, if you design a system, the best practice is to design the test file first, right? Design the test file first so that you make sure you cover all the cases. Then you implement your class or your program and test it against the test file. All right. So it's not writing your program and then write the test after the program. All right. Normally we should write the test first. All right. That's a good practice, better practice than just writing the test later. All right. Okay. All right. So I think we cover running the test case of JUnit if you have one. All right. So that's for the first class in this program. Okay. Any questions at this point? All right. So the main program, you see, the main program, you need to write a bit more, but you can't write this unless you, I think, write any other method, right? The main program is just while true. So it runs all the time. It displays the menu. And when you choose the choice of the menu, in this case, they use scanner. A scanner is a data object, an object, in this case, it's named KB, that can read from the keyboard using the command next line, next double, next int, reading data one by one from the keyboard, right? So in the main method, after displaying the menu, again, the printing in Java is long because it has to identify the path that contains the print method. All right, because Java assumes that there can be many methods with the same name. So print line, in this case, print line means print and then one line. Print and then press enter, that is. Print line can be in any other classes. So to make sure that it comes from the library of Java, you have to specify its class or its path, that is its path. So print line comes from variable out. Variable out is defined in class called system, that is in Java language library, right? So it's long because you have to specify the path. All right. Otherwise, Java will not be sure of which print to get because it assumes there can be many prints. All right. So, but normally, if you want to print something, the tool will help because it's very common. So you just type sys out in Eclipse and then control space, and it will print the rest for you. Just type sys out and then control space. All right. So control space can help you fill in many things, right? It kind of know the expectation that we have to write some really long code, but it's in this form in system.out.print, something like that. So it kind of guess correctly most of the time. All right. So you get the next line, which the user will input 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And then, but the user input is a string, right? The user input is a string. So you have to convert a string into a number. You use it by using integer library and call the parseInt method. And then put the string 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that you read from the keyboard in. And it will give you integer conversion. So it transforms string 0 to number 0. All right. And then you compare that number using switch statement. Switch statement is like an if statement, but it just compare variable, right? It just compare variable. So compare choice number. If it's 0, execute this. If it's 1, execute this. If it's 2, execute this. And so on. All right. It has to have break. at the end of each case, because in this kind of statement, if you don't have break, once it executes up to here, it will execute other cases too, right? It will execute other cases too, as if this doesn't happen, doesn't exist, all right? So you have to have break for each case if you want to separate them completely. So it will involve checking the case and perform the task according to the choice. Performing each task is actually calling a method, all right? And in this walkthrough, we will have to write some of that, right? And then there is also try and catch. Try and catch is a block that you can use to surround your part of code that may have an error, all right? If there is an error when running a program, the program will stop right away, all right? But Java has a way for you to deal with error, and with dealing with error, you can keep your program running, so your program will not stop prematurely. So if there is an error, then print the error message and then just get back to the main menu. In this case, just print returning to the main menu, because you catch the error here. If an error takes place during the run of this part, right? If an error takes place, an error will be catched in this block here, and the code will continue in this block and the block after. So your program will not stop, right? Otherwise, if you don't catch exception or don't catch error, when there's error happening, your program will just stop, and the virtual machine or the system will stop running. But this prevents it from stop running and carry on execution and get back to while true. All right. So your program can run forever until you have system exit or select 5. All right. So that's the concept of this walkthrough. All right. You implement class, guild member, department, and then guild database, and then use them here, where it just open the menu and run the method. And each method will call guild database. All right. And guild database has department and guild member inside, so it calls them if necessary. All right. So that's the concept. All right. And you can go read the code of the functions. All right. I will only cover these two. That's in the exercise. All right. Okay, I'll walk you through it. Now, before we can implement the main method, we have to complete department and guild database. So let's get back to department and guild database then. Any questions at this point? So I'll try finishing it as fast as I can. In this part, department, it's very similar to guild member, right? The difference is that it's bigger, and now the department contains an array list of guild member. So it contains other data. Now, guild member doesn't contain much, right? It contains itself, its information only, but department contains several guild members in a array list. All right. So constructor, I think I need to use set methods again. So I'll leave constructor for now and go to set name and other method. So set name, set the names Whether or not the name change was a success, hang on, set the name. If the name is not blank, okay, let's try if name not blank. Let's call is blank first. If not blank, then you can insert the not there. If name is not blank, then change the department name. Okay. Department name equal must have this dot name as well, because these two have the same name. So again, I need to separate them, distinguish between them by using this dot to mean the name defined for the class here. This dot name equal to name and return true, must return true as well. That means successfully
Professor.
change the name. Right?
Professor?
And, yeah.
Is there a reason you use the same name instead of using like another variable name like n?
Oh, I just want you to see this quite a bit.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
That's it. You can use different name, and if you use different name, then this one doesn't need a this dot. That's all. Okay. Oh, one thing, if you use auto generation, it will have the same name. All right. So set and get here is in a template of the exercise. But if you have a blank file, you can actually right click and source, generate getter and setter. And you can generate get and set of everything automatically for you, but it will not generate the out of range solution for you. You have to, fill in the out of range solution that you want to fix. All right. But it can generate all the getter and setter and even constructor for you. But the names will be the same. So in that case, you either need to change the name that it's already did for you, or just use this dot. All right. Okay, in this case, I use a template to, I use that template to generate the original rough code for me. So it gets the same name. So I just use this dot name, right? Return true in this case. Okay, that's done. If the name is blank, otherwise, then do not change the department name. So not change and return false. So this is enough. Just return false and don't do anything. So that's set name, and then get name should return name, right? Add member is done. Add member is it's given a guild member. Add the given member to the list. The list is here, department members, right? It's a list of guild members. Add the guild member to the list and set the department of that guild member to match the department's name, right? So let's see, get name, hang on, add member. So that's add member, right? Add member, right? So you should add the new guild member to the list. The list name is department members. All right, department members. It's an array list. Array list has a method add that you can call to add new data to the array list. So I add that data to the array list, but that's not enough. I have to call set my department to this department's name. Is it correct? Let's see. Right. So add M to the department list, and within that M, set departments of M to the name of this department. So that's two things that you need to do. Okay, so that should be fine, I think. That's add member. And then there is add multiple members. Add multiple members. The description is here. Okay. Add multiple members. Add all the members in an array list. So we have an array list of members. So several members. Add all members in given array list to this list. And make sure you call set my department for each member as well. So what I'll do, you can do a loop, right? You can do a loop for, I think the easiest one is for each, and then control space. It will fill in. Press enter and it will fill in for you. For each guild member in member list, for each member in here, I add the member to the database. So I can, oops, I think I closed by mistake. I add member. Since I already implement add member here, I might as well use it. Add member, this guild member, add to the department. So this already did the work for me. So this is done. So this is for each in the Java language. So for a guild member, this you can name it anyway. It says for a variable, this name of type guild member in a list. All right, so it's kind of similar to Python. All right, but you define a data type for the member. All right, for each member, then add member to the list of member in department. All right, so just use the method. All right, or you can do it another way. You can just use normal for loop, not for each. It is called for each loop, right? So you can use normal for loop for in I equal to 0, I less than the size of this list, right? There's a method size of array list. Then do something. Initialize I to 0. Then this loop will carry out if I is less than size of this given list. All right. And at the end of the loop, you increment I. Right. So that's for loop in this language. It has 3 components. Initialization before the loop, the Boolean test that will test before each iteration of the loop. If it fails, it doesn't go into the loop. And the last part is the update of a variable when you finish everything in that particular iteration, right? So for each iteration, it performs I++, means increment I by 1. So what we can do is doing something very similar, but since this is identified a bit, so for each guild member, you add member in member list dot get I to the department member list. All right. So member list to get the ith member in the member list, you use the method get of array list, right? If it's a normal array, you will be using something like this. If array is called A, you will be using A and then bracket I to access the ith element in array A, right? But in array list, you use method. So it has method get I. So add member of this list, member position I to the department list. So to the department's member list. Okay. Okay, so this is the another way you can do it. All right. So you are seeing how to do for loop in this language. And remember that it has to have brackets. The indent doesn't actually matter in this language. It's just there for readability. All right. The things that matter is the bracket. All right. The bracket will say this is the area where the execution of the loop will take place for each of the iteration. All right.
Excuse me, Professor, how do you
Yeah.
like quickly get the for loop again? Like when you type and you just get the whole int I equals 0?
For control space, and it will have choice for you. I just move my arrow key up and down. All right. So you just use type 4 and then control space. It will have choice for you. Choose one, press enter, and it generates everything for you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so that's it. And when you want, since I write duplicate code here, I want to comment this out. I can select and then press Control 7. Control 7 to put the comment in front of all the lines that I want to comment, right? And you can uncomment by selecting them and Control 7 again, right? They come and then they will come back to normal, right? Let me Control 7 to get this out. Okay. Okay, so that's add multiple members. Remove member. Remove, what does it do? Remove member. Remove a member from the given index of the list of member. So again, we only have one list of member for a department. So we remove from that list and return the remove member too. So what we can do is first we have to get that member first, otherwise we will not be able to return the member. So first I'll get the member. I'll get the member. Oh, it's not this one. It's the department. Sorry, department members. Department members get. So get that member so that I can return it after it's removed from our list. All right. Get the member so that we can return that member, because if we remove it, then we won't be able to have its value to return. So then I remove by using the remove command. There is a remove command again of array list. So this is array list that contains member. Remove member at a specified position, right? A bit of mistakes. Okay, I can undo with Control Z, undo the thing. So this should remove a member from the given index from the list and return the member, right? This should be done. This should be correct. Okay, that's done. Any questions? And we have get member and get all members. remain and then constructor. So let me finish this quickly. Get member, just, I think this is enough. Department members dot get I, get index. That's getting a member, number I, number index out of the list, and then get all members. Get all members, return all members in the department. So I think we can actually return this one, return department members itself, since it's array list of queue member anyway. That should be returned. So we return this one. We can return this one, array list of queue member. Return the department members array list itself. Okay, so that should do it for most of this class. And then the department set name and it should do something else too. In department, initialize the list, set the name, and initialize the list. So list should be initialized. So, well, in order to use array list, it should be initialized first. Initialize array list means doing something like this. Something like this. Oops, it doesn't have bracket. Okay. Okay. So this is initializing an array list. So before we use array list or any other data structure in the language, we should reserve memory space in our machine for it. And reserving memory space is done by the command new. All right, so we use new array list of queue member to allocate space for array list in our machine. If we don't do the new command, first, we will not be able to use array list in any other methods, right? Okay, so that's initializing array list and set name. Okay, that should do it for the department, right? Let's test it. Any questions at this point? So this one actually aims for you to just repeat something from the last class, the class queue member, and show you that we can store other data inside our own defined data. In this case, we define department and it can store several queue member inside, right? And also showing you how to do a for loop in this language. All right. So I think that most of the points. All right. And we can try running the test, department test, which in the department test here, it has variable that's already created, right? Being static means they are created right away when this class is created, all right? And set up for the test means before each of the method is executed for the test, setup is run first, all right? So setup is run each time before each method runs. So we can use it to set up the condition for the test that we want for every test function, all right? So, but otherwise the test concept's the same. So set name, we have the new department. So department has to exist before we can set its name. So set name to different value should actually change the name, and the blank name after set name, we should get the name being unchanged. Set name doesn't change existing name if we give it blank. All right. And it should return status false as well, as we defined earlier, something like that. So that's testing set name. Add member, we test if the member number increases and the member itself at a particular position actually changed as what we expected and removes the same. All right. Okay. So any question about this part? All right. Then we are left with the last part. All right. The last part is the guild database. Guild database. Guild database has a list of departments inside, like we specified earlier. It has a list of departments, and so it manipulates the list of departments, right? Creating department list, something like that, and check if department exists. All right. So if I think one can be, if you choose to write is exists first, then it may create department easier to implement by using is exists in create department. All right. And we also have class main as well. Okay. So you are left with 2 clauses. All right. I hope you can use what I walked through so far today as an example and go and try to implement the rest of the class yourself. All right. You'll try to implement the guild database yourself. Try to implement main yourself after you finish the guild database, and try to, after you finish, run the example. There is also exception, right? An exception class that, well, I need to cover too, but we don't have time today. I think I'll make a separate video covering the rest of today's, but the best way for you to learn is to go back and do it yourself too. All right, I'll make the video for the class guild database and for the exception, right? The exception is how we can deal with error in this language and manipulate the program such that error doesn't cause program to just stop and your program can continue execute. All right. Okay. I think this project has a lot of things that you will see when you actually work with actual project or actual data structure problem. All right. So, all right. Any questions?
Can I see the get all member part of the department again?
Right. Okay. Get all members. I just return the department members, which is an array list of guild member anyway.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Where will you post the recording?
I will save the Zoom recording and I will make it into a YouTube video and post the link. Okay.
Okay.
I'll
thank
post
you.
it in Discord.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I guess that's it then. If you don't have any other questions, then we are done for today. And next week we'll start the real lessons about data structures. Okay, see you then. But if you still have problems,
Thank you, Khajan.
then remain and
Thank you,
ask me.
Khajan.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay. Right? If you still have questions, then please do ask. All right, so I guess there are no more questions. No? Okay, I'll end the meeting now.